In a place like Omaha, there's not much of a housing price bubble, is there, Warren?
No, there's not been a bubble, but I would say that residential real estate probably has increased in price at a rate quite a bit faster than the general inflation rate.
Yeah, but if you get to Laguna, California, or Montecito, California, or the better suburbs of Washington, D.C., you have a real asset price bubble. I have a relative that to move to a good school district in the suburbs of Virginia, she'll have to pay 4 times as much as she can get from selling her nice Omaha house.
Yeah, well,
that's a price bubble.
I sold a house a few months ago in Laguna for $3.5 million. Now, it sold the first day, so I probably listed it too cheap. So don't count on me for residential real estate advice. But that house, the physical house would probably cost $500,000 or thereabouts. So in effect, the land went for $3 million implicitly. And the land is probably on the area of 2,000 square feet, which is a little less than 1/20th of an acre. Now you've got streets and all that sort of thing involved. But basically, I think that land sold for about $60 million an acre, which that fellow that you saw in the farm outfit in the movie sounds like a pretty fancy price for almost any kind of land. Charlie, you've witnessed it firsthand, though, out there.
Well, yeah, there's one of the Berkshire directors lives adjacent to what I regard as a pretty modest little house, which sold for $27 million recently. Now, these are houses that look right at the ocean, and there isn't a great deal of available shoreline in California, and there are a lot of people. But you have some very extreme housing price bubbles going on, and you would think there might be a real possibility that it could go in the other direction someday.
At $27 million, I'd rather stare at my bathtub. Yeah. Number 10. In the kind of world we live in, with so much of the assets of the world, whether they be foreign exchange or whether contracts or whether they be stocks or bonds or junk bonds or whatever, I think as high a percentage is on what I would call a hair trigger now as it has ever existed. In other words, I think there are more people that go to bed at night with a position in foreign exchange or bonds or a carry trade or stocks or whatever, that some event that could happen overnight would cause them to want to change that position in the next 24 hours. I think that's the highest perhaps in history. Somebody's referred to it as the electronic herd that is out there. I mean, people can give vent to decisions involving billions and billions and billions of dollars, with the press of a key virtually. And I think that electronic herd is at an all-time high. I think that some exogenous event, it was almost long-term capital management in 1998, but some exogenous event, and we will have them, will cause it. I think it could very well cause some kind of stampede by that herd, and that you can't get rid, if you're the rest of the world, you can't get rid of dollars. I mean, if you're sitting in Japan, China, or someplace, and you own a lot of U.S. government bonds, if you sell them to somebody in the United States, you get U.S. dollars. So you still have U.S. assets. If you sell them to somebody in France, you've now got euros, but they've got the government bonds. You can't get rid of those assets, but you can't have people trying to head for the door very quickly with them under certain circumstances.
Well, I'm, if anything, a little more repelled than you are by the lack of virtue in the way our nation uses consumer credit and the way we run the public finances. And I have a feeling that eventually a lack of virtue is going to hurt one. Where we differ is that I agree with Adam Smith that a great civilization has a lot of ruin in it, meaning it will bear a lot of abuse. And so I think there are dangers in the current situation that make it unwise for anybody to swing for the fences. But I don't think that we have a certainty that the system won't stand a lot more of the kind of abuse it's getting now.
What do you think the end will be?
Bad.
We are truly in this country like an incredibly rich family that owns, we'll say metaphorically, millions of acres of land. They can't see, they can't travel to the outer reaches of their domain, but nevertheless they sit on the front porch and wait for the produce to come in from this vast holding, and when they get it all, they still want to consume about 6% more than everything that's been produced on the farm. And they have the ability to do that by simply selling off a little piece of the farm every day and every year that they can't even see. So they don't feel any poorer at the end of the day or at the end of the year, because it's still, as far as their eyesight can see, they own everything that God ever created. And they can sell that little piece, or they can mortgage it. They can send IOUs to these people that are giving them the extra goods to consume. And we are a very, very, very rich family, and we produce a whole lot, and we consume a little bit more than we produce. And we trade away a little bit of the farm, or put a little bit of a mortgage on every day. And the rest of the world is happy to take a little piece of our farm or take a mortgage on it. It's been going on a while. It's accelerated a lot in the last few years. And more the rest of the world is owning part of us. And we are going to have to service that ownership, either through interest if they took it in IOUs or in some other way. And it can go on a long time, but if it goes on a long time, the world will own a good bit of us. And our children will be paying one way or another for the fact that we got to consume more than we produced. And it could happen. You've obviously had some less interest in the rest of the world accepting dollars by the fact that the dollar's declined somewhat in value in the last few years. The investment in us is always going to be equal to the overconsumption. I mean, it's an equation. But if people get a little less excited about enthused about one side of the equation, it reflects itself in the pricing mechanism. And the world has demonstrated a diminishing enthusiasm for dollars in the last few years as they get flooded with them, because we send $2 billion out every day, whether we like it or not, and whether they like it or not. Now the question is, does that reach some tipping point at some point, or does some exogenous event come about that causes people to want to rush for exits? Who knows? I have a hard time thinking of any outcome from this that involves an appreciating dollar. But as Charlie will point out in just a second, there have been times when we've been surprised. Charlie?
Yeah, the counter argument is that what does it matter if the foreigners own 10% more of the United States, if at that time total wealth of the United States is 30% higher than it is now? Yeah. And so the people who have that point of view just roll with it. And some of them think that if we didn't manufacture anything in the United States and just sat here running hedge funds, we would have a wonderful economy because it comports with Republican principles.
We could cut each other's hair too, actually. I mean,
yeah.
But back in the late 18th century, obviously, the idea of taxation without representation caused a certain amount of trouble, and ownership of the rest of the world by the rest of the world of this country would be seen as a form of taxation, I think, 20 years from now by the people who resided here. If instead of fighting the Revolutionary War, we'd simply made a deal with England and said, we'll give you 3% or 5% of our national product forever, and you let us be free, and we'll just send the royalty over every day, that might have looked like a good alternative to war, in 1776. But I don't think that subsequent generations would have reacted well. I mean, something would have happened over time. And I have a feeling that the idea of America paying tribute to the rest of the world because of the overconsumption patterns of a previous generation seems to be, I don't think that's a particularly stable scenario. But that's why we have only $21 billion in foreign exchange contracts. Charlie might have a little less, or maybe none, if he were running it entirely, and I might have somewhat more if I didn't know I'd have him sitting up here next to me next year.